On this episode of the Fantasy Flyer, we're going to go over the Week 13 preview, and that includes all of the games. We'll review the Thursday night football game. We're going to give you 5 fantasy flyers that you can trust going into your Week 13 matchups. And me and Taylor face off in our 53-man league this week, which means it is the super extra bit of fun side games, part 2 for the year. You don't want to miss it. Episode 25 of the Fantasy Flyer starts right now.
And welcome back to the Fantasy Flyer. My name is Derek. I am one of the hosts. My other hosts, introduce yourself, sir.
What's up, y'all? It's Taylor in the dojo, as we've been calling it.
He's in his dojo. Welcome to episode 25. Welcome back after our missed episode on Tuesday. Had some life things happen, really, for both of us. So we decided to take just a day off. Sometimes you just need a day off. I put in my sick time request with the Fantasy Flyer Commission. It was approved. Taylor had to take a similar time off out of his time off bank. But when you are dedicated employees to the Fantasy Flyer Commission, that is perfectly fine. They just let you, once in a while, they give you a little bit of a break. We put in so much work that they got to do that with us.
They're a good group, a couple of guys.
Yeah, they're pretty good. They're pretty good usually. How you feeling today? You enjoying? We unfortunately, because of Tuesday's show, we didn't get to go over any of the week 12 games. Most of them at this point are probably solidified in most folks' minds.
Yeah.
Not really a whole heck of a lot stood out. If there was a week, I don't think there was anything. The Seahawks Raiders game was great, like that one. I don't really think there was a whole heck of a lot else that really was impressing me. The Monday night game was not very good. Colts and Steelers.
Mm.
I can't think of anything else that stood out. Anything for you? I mean, most of the good games happened on Thursday, which is Thanksgiving, so that's kind of the good news.
Yeah. I mean, the Jags beating the Ravens. Lawrence actually looked pretty good.
Yeah. Forgot about that one.
The Jets with Mike White demolishing the Bears, although the Bears didn't have Justin Fields, so.
Yeah, I'll take that with a grain of salt.
Yeah, and then Packers and Eagles was actually a pretty good game. Before Rodgers got hurt, the Packers kind of looked like they might be able to win it.
Yeah, okay. That's a good. I'm going back through the show plan that I had written for that. Yeah, there were so many other games that just weren't impressive though. Like,
Yeah.
the worst thing about it.
Yeah.
Dolphins beating the Texans, we knew that. 49ers blank the Saints, which is what a surprise. Panthers beat the Broncos. Russell Wilson, well, I'll rant about him later. Yeah, Eagles and Packers was a good game. But honestly, like if we had to take a Tuesday off, we picked a good one. Just for spits and giggles. Not that we like to take Tuesdays off. We're taking shows off. You know,
sorry, I was going to say the last thing I'd bring up is the Buccaneers Browns game went into OT and the Browns came back to win it with that great one-handed catch by Njoku.
Yeah,
or that brought them into OT, right?
That brought them into OT, and then Cooper had some amazing footwork off the line to get wide open, and that set up a 2-yard run from Nick Chubb, who had 100 yards, and I was very surprised by that. And the Bucks did a good job keeping him out of the end zone until it mattered. So, But yeah, other than that, I didn't miss a lot from week 12. I honestly didn't even watch a whole heck of a lot of football on this past Sunday. Had a couple things to do, but it wasn't a slate that entirely drew my attention. My Cowboys played on Thursday. A lot of the good teams played on Thursday, which is what's odd. But yeah, now here we are going into week 13. We'll bring it to the forward. And now we're on Friday night. We're going to start off our show with the 9-segment news, injury notes, etc. And you are the guru of the 9 from the dojo, Guru Dojo. Sir, please take it away.
Alrighty. Teams on bye this week: Arizona Cardinals and Carolina Panthers. So we'll kick it off with Atlanta. Unfortunately, Kyle Pitts with a knee injury he's being placed or was placed on IR, underwent season-ending knee surgery on Wednesday. Head coach Arthur Smith said that it's nothing that concerns us going into 2023. I mean, doesn't really affect fantasy too much because he unfortunately wasn't having a great year. Nobody on that team is having a great year, so is what it is. Chicago, Darnell Mooney with his ankle injury was placed on IR. Trevor Siemian with his oblique will be out and apparently is undergoing season-ending surgery. The good news, though, is Justin Fields' left shoulder was not on the injury report, so looks like he should be good to go this Sunday. Cincinnati, Joe Mixon is still in concussion protocols and is questionable for Sunday, so you just got to monitor that. Not really sure what to say with concussions, as we've sort of talked about in the past. They're not linear. Jamar Chase, who was healthy, it's kind of a weird situation. He was healthy last week, but they didn't want to play him because he hadn't really practiced or done anything at a football level for like 4 weeks. So they ended up playing it safe and sitting him. He is listed as questionable, but some quotes from Zach Taylor: he did everything we needed to see in terms of running and cutting. And then he said, I hate to use the words for sure, but I'm optimistic he's on track. So seems like Jamar Chase should be good to go. Cleveland, as we just talked about, David Njoku, who played last week and had a pretty good game. Unfortunately, he is out this week. So it looks like he's still got some lingering issues with the knee. Dallas, James Washington with his foot injury is designated to come off of IR. Not really sure that will change anything in a couple of weeks for that team. They have a pretty established wide receiver room. Michael Gallup apparently has an illness and is questionable. He did return to practice on Friday in a limited capacity, so that's trending in the right direction. Denver, Mike Boone with his ankle injury is designated to return from IR. KJ Hamler is out. Cortland Sutton apparently also has there's a lot of illnesses going around actually. So he has he has some sort of illness. Apparently it's like a stomach bug, and I don't think he practiced at all this week. So definitely want to monitor that. Jerry Jeudy with his ankle is listed as questionable. Hackett said Friday that he'll be a game time decision. So yeah, definitely monitor the wide receiver situation there. You may be able to find some value there if you're a DFS player, or maybe Dulcich is a good play. Detroit, just continuing news around Jameson Williams with his potential return from IR. They apparently haven't made a decision yet for Sunday, so I guess there's a possibility he may play, but I don't see why they would force it. Green Bay, Romeo Dobbs. I still don't know that I say it right. Dobbs. Okay. He is now questionable. He's been out a couple of weeks, I think. Limited participant Wednesday through Friday, so seems like he may be trending in the right direction. Aaron Rodgers, who obviously we kind of talked about coming out of last Sunday's game, ribs/thumb stuff, is not on the injury report. Houston, Brandon Cooks with a calf injury is out. Rex Burkhead with concussion is questionable. He did not practice Wednesday and Thursday, but it was a full participant Friday. Indianapolis, Jelani Woods, shoulder/quad is questionable. Didn't practice Wednesday and Thursday, was back Friday. It didn't really say in what capacity he was back. Kylan Granson, not on the injury report. He was out the previous week with an illness. It seems like, I mean, they're both, Jelani Woods and Kylan Granson are both rookies, but it seems like Granson has been sort of they have a ton of tight ends, but he's kind of been the go-to guy.
Well, I would agree with you until Monday's game.
Yeah.
Jelani Woods had 7 catches and 80 yards through
90,
the
I
first.
think, 94.
No. Through the first 12 games of the season, or 11 games.
Gotcha.
He had 7 catches for 80 yards. He alone had 88 catches for 90 or 92 yards on Monday night by himself. So,
yeah,
honestly, keeper leagues probably worth a stash. We know how much the Colts love their tight ends. We'll look back 3 years to Eric Ebron, and even a little bit Jack Doyle right around that time too. Now they have some good wide receivers, so I wouldn't put a whole hell of a lot of stock into it. But Mo Alley Cox, when he's used as a blocker, works. And now you see Jelani Woods becoming a good pass catcher. When neither one of them play, they use Kylan Granson as both. So I like Jelani Woods going forward. Second-year tight ends.
he will be a second year, right? He's a rookie this year.
Right.
Okay.
That's why I said for a stash.
Yeah. And he was the higher draft pick ahead of Granson.
Oh, that's good because he played like it.
Yeah. Totally agree with all that. I was just kind of pointing out that Granson so far this season has kind of been the go-to guy, but Woods probably the better overall talent. He's definitely a massive guy. So anyways, Jacksonville, Travis Etienne with his foot injury that he came out of last week's game with, and Hasty kind of stepped in. He is questionable, limited participant this week. Doug Peterson indicated that ETN would be, quote, good to go this weekend despite the designation. So that's a little funky, but apparently he should be good. Zay Jones with a chest injury is listed as questionable and was a limited participant this week. I only note this about Daryl Henderson, who's new to the team and not really relevant, but he has had an illness, is listed as questionable, and apparently, according to Peterson, would likely be inactive on game day if ETN is available. So it sounds like if ETN is not available, they'll obviously make him active, and it'll be kind of he might get some usage, but he's still, it says, continuing to grow and learn the Jaguars offense. So I don't know how much I'd lean on him if ETN's out. Kansas City, Kadarius Toney is out again with hamstring stuff. Las Vegas, Josh Jacobs went into last week's game questionable with his calf injury. Obviously had a phenomenal game, but re-aggravated it late in the game and was a limited participant this week. So it seems like he should be good to go. I don't know. Hopefully it doesn't come up again this Sunday, or I don't know if they'll do anything around limiting his workload a tiny bit, but we'll have to see. And then just because of Jacobs' questionable designation, I noted here that Brandon Bolden calf is also questionable, was also a limited participant. If Jacobs is out, Bolden might get a little bit more work. But if he's out, Zamir White and Amir Abdullah would be the only two guys left. Los Angeles Chargers, Mike Williams with his ankle injury is still out. Rams, this is a little bit older news, but we didn't have the Tuesday or Wednesday show. Allen Robinson with his foot injury was placed on IR. Matthew Stafford with his neck injury is still out. So they're hurting. And honestly, they should just write the season off and try to get some good draft picks. I don't really know that I want any wide receivers or anything on that team, definitely with Stafford out. New Orleans, Jarvis Landry with his lingering ankle injury is still questionable, limited participant this week. But I just want to note that this has been the case the past few weeks, and he's still suited up and played. And I didn't actually look too closely at how well he's done. It's been nothing crazy. I don't even know if it's like flex worthy, but he's been out there. Anyways, Rashid Shaheed with his back injury is questionable. Limited participant this week, so maybe Landry will see a little bit more work. Obviously, they're going to have to lean pretty heavily on Olave, maybe Taysom Hill, Kamara, because Juwan Johnson also has a questionable designation with his ankle injury and did not practice Friday. Moving on to the New York Giants. This team has just been demolished at the wide receiver position. Unfortunately, Darius Slayton with an illness is questionable, missed practice Thursday and Friday, so that's not great. Richie James with a knee injury is also questionable, missed practice Wednesday, was limited Thursday and Friday. And then Bellinger with his eye surgery that he had is listed as questionable and did not practice. Or did practice Wednesday through Friday, so that is trending in the right direction. I didn't see anything that really spoke one way or the other from a coaching standpoint, but man, this team is hurting, yet somehow has a decent record. So we'll see. They continue to find ways to win. New York Jets, Michael Carter came out of last week's game with ankle injury. He is listed as questionable, didn't practice Wednesday through Friday, and is listed as doubtful. So Zonovan Knight, James Robinson, and I'm drawing a blank.
Tyler Johnson.
Thank you. Ty Johnson. Ty Johnson and Zonovan being probably the more favorable guys to go after. Although that being said, Robinson was inactive last week, so that's why he didn't.
For no reason.
Yeah, I don't
With the
know if
bad
it's just
game.
because he's still like getting used to the offense or whatever. So like he was inactive.
It's been 4 weeks.
Has it been that long?
It's been 4
wow.
weeks.
I
First
was
week of
thinking 2
November.
weeks. Okay.
Yeah. No, it was when Brees Hall got hurt.
Yeah, right. I guess it was
Or a
right.
week after Brees Hall got hurt.
All right. Well, anyways, I was going to say he was inactive, so we didn't really get a chance to see whether like what type of workload he would have gotten. But I guess if it's been 4 weeks and he was still inactive, I would still lean towards Zonovan and Ty Johnson. Especially the way that Zonovan played coming in for Carter. Pittsburgh, Jalen Warren with a hamstring injury, questionable. Practice fully Wednesday through Friday, so that's great. Najee Harris, oblique, not on the injury report, also good. San Francisco, Deebo Samuel with a quad injury, limited Wednesday, missed Thursday, and then limited again on Friday. So this is not the hamstring injury that he had the previous week. This is something else. Apparently, it was like what did they call it? Some sort of, I forget the wording, but it's a pretty bad bruise apparently, or something on his quad that he's working with. The fact that he came back Friday after missing Thursday seems like he's trending in the right direction, and I think they have a decent matchup. Tampa Bay, Cameron Brate, illness, questionable, didn't practice Wednesday through Friday, so Cade Otton maybe a go. Russell Gage, hamstring, questionable, limited participant Wednesday through Friday. Whatever, if he comes back, they already have Evans, Godwin, Julio Jones. Finally, Washington Commanders, Antonio Gibson, foot injury, was listed as questionable, limited Wednesday, missed Thursday, limited again on Friday. So keep an eye on him, but seems like he's trending in the right direction. That is it for the 9.
All right. One more tiny note. Elijah Mitchell is out for San Francisco.
Oh, yeah.
You Christian McCaffrey owners can breathe a sigh of relief. You'll have at least 1 week where he may go for 40 points. Instead of getting clogged with splitting downs with Elijah Mitchell. Really good stuff. If you have any of those fantasy players that we mentioned, obviously a lot of questionables as usual. Feel free to, well, don't feel free. You should be anyway. You should be watching for those injuries, planning your attack for plan B. That's the word I was trying to look for. Words were difficult for a second. Yeah, really good stuff. We're gonna play a quick game of 4 downs because 4 downs are super fun. If you haven't seen a 4 down segment before, I will really quick run it over. I'm going to say 4 sentences to Taylor, and then he is going to rank them from most to least likely or least to most likely. It doesn't matter as long as they're coherent. Then he's going to return the favor. My 4 downs this week are generally fantasy related, which is good. They are not football teams or scores or actual game heavy stats. So I'll go first. Down number 1. Deshaun Watson scores 25 fantasy points versus Houston in his debut. 2022 debut. Why it's not 2023 yet. Down number 2. Derrick Henry has more fantasy points this week than Jalen Hurts. Yes, I know there are different positions. Down number 3. Brian Robinson has more yards and fantasy points than Saquon Barkley. Down number 4, Keenan Allen and Devontae Adams in any combination combine for 40 fantasy points. Mark your answers now.
All right, so Deshaun Watson scores 25 or more fantasy points. Is that what you said?
Yeah,
Okay.
25. Anything 25 or north.
Yep. Derrick Henry has more fantasy points than Jalen Hurts. Brian Robinson has more yards and fantasy points than Saquon Barkley. And Keenan Allen and Devontae Adams combined for 40 or more fantasy points.
Yes.
All right.
Mamma mia.
Yeah. Let's see here. Do you have, or should I look up? Titans are playing.
Titans are playing the Eagles.
Oh, they are
Those
playing.
are the
Okay.
same game.
Same game. I like that. Okay. Interesting. Okay.
One of the many juicy matchups this week. This is a much more interesting week. You're not allowed this Tuesday. We have to go back to work on Wednesday. We're not allowed in this Wednesday show.
Okay. I am going to start with most likely Keenan Allen and Devontae Adams combined for 40 or more fantasy points.
Okay.
Second most likely, I will go. I think I'm going to go with Brian Robinson having more yards and points than Barkley. And I'm leaning on the fact that Gibson may be out and the Giants have a lot of injuries. So the biggest thing that will have to be stopped is Barkley himself, which honestly would still kind of be the case even if they had these other wide receivers. And the Commanders have actually been playing some pretty good D.
Yep. We'll talk about that game.
Yeah. And then I will have Deshaun Watson scoring 25 or more points. And then least likely, Derrick Henry has more fantasy points than Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, don't hate it. I think that the Allen Adams 40 fantasy points is, believe it or not, it's actually a bit of a stretch.
Yeah, probably. But
I would.
Go
ahead. I'm in the 5 to 10 point fantasy.
That's what I was
range.
thinking.
I think
Yeah.
they're both going to be somewhere around the 16 to 18 this week. But there's a ceiling there that is for sure above 40 between the two of them. Robinson over Saquon. Obviously, Robinson has he's toted the rock a little bit more than Gibson last couple weeks, and also Giants are relatively bad versus the rush. And Washington, like you said, their defense has stepped up. Watson over 25 points over Houston, or 25 points against Houston. That's going to require a couple touchdowns, and he's going to have to rush. I think that's the big key with that one. But Henry over Hurts is kind of a tough one because I see Henry getting into the end zone. I don't think he's going to do it 3 times, and I don't think he's going to run for 180 yards. So
Yeah,
or
and
150 yards. So
he's not overly involved in the passing game, so
Yeah.
Hurts being a rushing QB just has the better chance for a better game.
I like it.
Alrighty.
Your turn.
My downs. First down, I also have a Deshaun Watson one.
All right.
Deshaun Watson is a top 10 QB this week versus Houston.
Okay.
Down number 2, Nick Chubb is the RB number 1 this week versus Houston. Down number 3, Christian Kirk is a top 8 wide receiver this week versus Detroit. And down number 4, Pat Freiermuth is a top 3 tight end this week versus Atlanta.
You have Deshaun Watson, top 10 QB. What was number 2?
Nick Chubb, the
Nick
number
Chubb,
1 RB this
the
week.
number 1 RB. Hold on. Who are they playing? The Texans. Ooh, juicy. Okay, and then Christian Kirk's a top 8 wide receiver. Pat Freiermuth, top 3 tight end. Oh, Atlanta is so bad defensively against anything passing. That's tough. I'm going to say Deshaun Watson.
I like sex.
I'm going to say Deshaun Watson is number 1. I think Christian Kirk as a top 8 is number 2, but that makes me so itchy in my underwear. Like not. But Freiermuth top 3, like Kelsey, Andrews, like they both play. Kittle plays. Like that doesn't make me feel good. Yeah, I'll put Kirk second. I'm gonna put Chubb third, Freiermuth fourth.
Okay.
I don't think this is necessarily the glowing Chubb game with the return of Deshaun Watson. It's gonna be good because it's Nick Chubb. RB1, maybe.
Yeah,
Doubt it.
that was that was a very bold line.
It was, and again with Elijah Mitchell being out against the Dolphins, Christian McCaffrey is going to be busy. There's going to be, he's probably my lead in for RB1 this week because of that. A second would be Travis Etienne. Spoiler alert: Doug Peterson actually this afternoon said he's good to go. So that just popped up on my Twitter. I don't know why that fed through. I don't pay attention. Whatever. Don't question it. Don't ask Elon. Spot on. Yeah, those interesting. So,
yeah, I mean, we'll talk about this
one.
stuff more, but yeah, the Watson stuff and Chubb is kind of like the biggest thing there. I think top 10 for Watson is like I think that's sort of the gimme there. Hopefully that's very easy for him to do. Whether or not he has a bunch of rust and that doesn't happen could play into Nick Chubb having a better game maybe, but we'll see.
Right. I was just going to say, like, if usually you have 2 juxtaposition there because it's going to be hard for both to probably happen.
Yeah.
I mean, top 10 isn't necessarily impossible, but again, a lot of really good matchups with a lot of high points that could go off.
Yeah.
Lawrence versus Goff, 2 atrocious, not atrocious, but an atrocious passing defense and a not so good passing defense. Honestly, Pickett and Mariota, both of those teams allow wide receivers to catch anything you throw from anywhere.
Right.
So there's a lot of opportunity for QBs to step up. Jalen Hurts, of course, never rule him out. Patrick Mahomes is playing. Josh Allen already played and was decent. So, yeah, I like those. That was a good game of 4 downs. Very easy. If you want to play it with your friends, you just have to credit us all of the rights because we came up with it. Thanks. Real quick, we're going to go over the Thursday night football review. which we didn't get to preview because we didn't have a show on Wednesday / Tuesday / whatever. Bills won 24-10. I didn't get to tell all of you this, but it probably would have went that way on Tuesday / Wednesday. It's the Bills have this weird thing with AFC East teams where they just they're used to them, I guess. I don't, if except for the Dolphins, I guess, but nobody's used to the Dolphins yet. Josh Allen was Josh Allen. Big points to James Cook. I think we have to bring up the James Cook love fest that is starting to brew in Buffalo.
Mm-hmm.
Because he was, I would say, electric. He didn't get the touchdown. That went to Devin Singletary. But he was out and away the more efficient and more used back.
Yeah.
14 carries, 64 yards. Also had the third most targets at 6 targets, caught all 6 of them, had 41 yards. Your opinion, is this them opening up the offense to a new way of moving the football?
I mean, they've been wanting a pass catching running back for quite some time. It was interesting that he did take the lead, or had more carries than Singletary, only by 1, but still, that I didn't expect. I don't know. I don't want to say that continues. It may have just sort of been how things worked out for this game. Cook is not the sort of he doesn't have the body to be a bell cow and every down back. So I don't think they're gonna go crazy. Like, I mean, this was almost, I don't know the snap percentage, but at least carry wise, it was basically 50-50. Yardage wise, they were very close, 64-51, Cook, Singletary. So yeah, I could see something similar to this continuing. I would still sort of lean towards Singletary being the 1-2 down kind of guy, and Cook being a little more in the receiving game. But he's clearly capable. So yeah, I think the younger guy, first year in his contract, Singletary, is this his last year in his contract?
Last year.
Yeah, so obviously they're seeing what they got.
Yeah. Tremaine Edmonds said the game plan from the Bills was to make Mac Jones beat him with his arm. They did not attempt as many passes as I thought. Mac Jones threw for over 350 yards on the Thursday night game versus the Vikings.
Yeah.
382, I believe, to be exact. And he didn't crest 200 in this game, I don't think.
No, 195.
Yeah. So and he can do it. They just didn't. And his frustration was very visible. He was. It was all over Twitter again. He was yelling at Matt Patricia, and he was saying, without the expletives, why aren't we passing the ball? The blanking run game sucks. And that was caught on television camera, and you can make out his mouth. And he was not wrong. He was not wrong. You can't, as the Patriots, continuously use Ramondre Stevenson and not expect teams like the Bills, or
Right.
a lot of them, to adjust heavily to that. And I mean, Tremaine Edmonds said it after the game. We wanted him to beat us with his arm. He did not. But there's also there's good tools to use in the pass game for the Patriots, and even Ramondre can be one of those. But when you clog down, like when you just get run, and then you're forced into these desperation throws, desperation scenarios. I mean, if Mac Jones is that frustrated, it's something to do with the people calling plays above him. And I think this one doesn't fall on him. I think this falls on coaching for the Patriots.
Yeah. It was it continues to be frustrating to watch them. Like, they had a couple of opportunities in the red zone, or I shouldn't say in the red zone, but opportunities on the Bills side of the field, and they just either penalties got them back or bad plays, whatever. One field goal didn't make it, hit the crossbar. So this game at best could have been 13-24. But yeah, they have like a 39% touchdown percentage in the red zone. It's like one of the worst in the league. They can't capitalize. They kind of get the like drives going, although I won't say they did that great this game. There was a lot of I don't know if it wasn't like 3 and outs, but there was a lot of bad drives for them. Yeah, it's very frustrating to watch. I would say that this, had they had Daniels, this could have been significantly closer, and they had opportunities as it was. They just suck.
Folded. Josh Allen, 22 for 33, 223 yards, 2 touchdowns. Singletary, 13 carries, 51 yards, touchdown saved his fantasy day. Stephon Diggs, 7 catches on 9 targets, 92 yards, and a touchdown. We mentioned James Cook. The other touchdown went to Gabe Davis, who had 7 targets, only caught 2 of them. Isaiah McKenzie, 5 catches on 5 targets, 44 yards. For New England, Mac Jones, 22 for 36, 195 yards, and 1 touchdown. Ramondre Stevenson, 10 carries, 54 yards. Sort of get clogged up there at the end. His longest was 16. So the other 9, it was right around 4 yards a carry other than that 16-yarder. Their leading receiver was somebody who hadn't caught a pass prior to yesterday's game. Marcus Jones, 2 catches, 51 yards, and a touchdown.
He scored on his first ever offensive play.
Yeah, points to the Mac and Marcus combination. Jones's. Tyquan Thornton, 2 for 31 on 3 targets. Ramondre Stevenson, 8 targets, 6 catches, 24 yards. Myers, Aguilar, and Parker all had 3, 2, and 2 catches respectively. Nothing impressive. A lot of targets this is it. This is what I'm talking about. You have Tyquan Thornton, you have Ramondre Stevenson, Jacoby Myers, Nelson Aguilar, Devontae Parker, Kendrick Bourne, Hunter Henry, Jonnu Smith. They all caught passes. They all had 2 or more targets. You have him there. You just throw it. Throw it more. I can't.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen Parker do some great things, and they have Aguilar, who's still capable. Jacoby Myers, I think, unfortunately, might be sort of in and out of injury stuff. I think he did go to the tent during this game. But, I mean, Ramondre Stevenson was the most targeted and received the most catches. Like, he was basically their offense. You can't have one player be your only option when you have viable options like this.
Yeah. Patriots, I forget who they play next. I know the Bills play the Jets next Sunday. That is going to be, I think the Bills are going to go into that one very angry, especially if Mike White plays.
Pats play the Cardinals.
Yeah. Bounce back opportunity versus a very lackluster Cardinal team.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I will say for the Pats is they had 3 games in 12 days.
That'll do it. How do you 3? So what? They go.
They had 2. So they had the 2 Thursday games, right? Thanksgiving and then this. So then Sunday, Thursday.
Yeah. Okay. I'm like, how does that?
I know. I thought it was pretty surprising
too. This is
too.
their 3rd game in 12 days. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is what it is. Good Bills team. Honestly, they couldn't afford to lose that one. They can't afford to lose again to the Jets.
Right.
Especially if the Dolphins don't lose to the 49ers Sunday. We're going to take our first break. We're going to come back. We're going to go into the Week 13 preview. I have lined out most of the important games. We're starting into the point of the season where games are going to not matter. And other than fantasy, there's really no point to even target them. So a couple of these will be that. But we will be back with part 2. Taylor, do us a favor and sign us off.
We'll see you all on the flip.
And welcome back to part 2 of the Fantasy Flyer. Derek, Taylor, we're here. We're going to keep going. Week 13 preview. So let's start off with a first of our host v host games.
Round 1, fight.
Wasn't as loud, I don't think, as it should have been. Either way, 7-4 Jets at the Vikings, 9-2. Minnesota 3-point favorites. The over/under at 44.5. Man, these are 2 teams that probably 5 weeks ago I wouldn't have even looked at this game. Mike White will continue to lead the New York Jets. Their rush game was scattered last week due to the injury to Carter, and then you didn't really have any time to plan for who is coming in, and it looked really good against a team that doesn't defend the run when it was anybody who can tote the football. Zonovan Knight was very good. Ty Johnson had the 30-some yard touchdown. Both completely serviceable. One thing I want to say is if James Robinson's in, I expect him to be like bell cow by like 80%. I know you said you didn't like that, but
No,
I do.
no, I was saying that I was kind of leaning towards that, and then you sort of convinced me otherwise because he'd been inactive for no reason. But my
Yeah, he was a
thinking
healthy
was
scratch.
a healthy scratch, right? Yeah, my thinking was he hasn't quite gotten up to speed with the playbook, but and therefore we couldn't see his usage. But if he's actually active, I would expect that he's the more experienced overall, and the body for sort of a 3-down guy here. Although he's not the best pass catcher, if I remember.
This is set up for Ty Johnson to be half as effective and Zonovan Knight to be shut down.
Yeah, unless
Zonovan
anything
Knight-
happens to Robinson, yeah, Zonovan Knight might not really be too involved.
These are two completely different defenses
Mhm.
between the Vikings and the Bears. The Bears have broken down their defense in the last 5-6 weeks since before the trade deadline. The Vikings is arguably gotten better. Granted, they've let some runs go past, but I don't think this is completely set up for somebody to take a shot on Zonovan Knight and flop with his 1.4 fantasy points on 7 rushes. And Ty Johnson isn't looking much better.
Right.
James Robinson has faced the Vikings. Matter of fact, was that? No, that was not this year. So I'd say that must have been last year, before ETN came back. I believe he's already played the Vikings within the last 14 months. The Jets
Right.
allow Jets allow 8.3 passing first downs per game over the last 3, which is 3rd best in the league. Also, you have to realize that 2 of those 3 games, the opponent didn't score like hardly any points. So keep that in mind. They've allowed the 7 rushing first downs of the last 3, which is tied for 15. I don't think, I mean, their defense, like we've talked about it, their defense has naturally created pressure most of the year. We've actually been trying to kind of point that out more and more and not let it fly under the radar. But this Minnesota team is still elite, obviously offensively. I don't need to tell you who's in Minnesota. Anybody who's watching this or listening to this should know who is in Minnesota for the Vikings. It is an endless list of weapons from just about every position. There's amazing depth. Kevin O'Connell has stepped in and done an amazing job with that team to be 9-2. I can almost see this being a defensive battle, but also that's not the way that this Vikings team works. So it's tough to call it that way. I am going to start Dalvin Cook. I think especially if this gets out of hand, which it can. Mike White is also set up for failure in this game because he just came off that great game. Yeah, woohoo, did great against Chicago. Now you're walking into a wall that is Minnesota. With the exception of the Dallas Cowboys, their defense has been very good. So that makes me not like Garrett Wilson so much. I honestly am not a huge. Elijah Moore had the long touchdown last week against the Bears. Garrett Wilson also had touchdowns, 2 touchdowns, I believe, right?
I don't quite remember. I can look it up.
Maybe that was the week before. No, I think he had 2. He had 2 last week. I don't remember. Something like that. But if that,
He
I
did.
like
Yep.
2.
Yep.
Yeah. So I think Elijah Moore actually will get a little bit more target this week. And Mike White throws the ball more, which is good news. So it's not like Garrett Wilson's the worst player you can start off this list. I would just temper a little expectation.
Yeah.
Mike White should be getting these running backs involved in the pass game. The last time he started any games, which was at some point last year,
Right.
he had like 8 or 10 different catches to running backs, and there was just nothing that teams could do. I don't know why. I'm going to take Minnesota in this one, 23-19.
Yeah, I also have Minnesota very close. I have Minnesota 24-18.
Okay.
Yeah, the Jets D pressuring Kirk or Cousins is definitely going to be sort of their best weapon here because Cousins doesn't do great in pressure. But on the other side of that, yeah, Mike White, his second start of the season, and the Vikings having a pretty decent defense. I don't want to say they're going to be horrendous, but temper your expectations.
It very easily could be. We could
Yes.
both be giving the Jets too many points.
Right.
I could totally see this being like a 27-16 if it goes that way, or 27-14. All in all, I expect the Vikings to be the winner. I don't think that's a stretch by anybody's imagination. Obviously, that's why my score indicates that. Next game, Steelers 4-7 at the Falcons 5-7. Falcons, one of the last 6 teams to get their bye next week. Panthers, Cardinals on bye this week. Pittsburgh is a 1-point favorite in this in Atlanta, over under 42.5. Steelers have been a lot better their last 3 games. Starting to see some trends develop. TJ Watt matters. That's the first trend. They're only allowing 3 third down conversions per game over the last 3, which is the best in the league. A little bit of a change. That includes the Bengals game, which was a 37-30 loss, but they allowed 37 points, only giving up. I think actually that one was like 4.5 third downs per game. Their season average is 5.3, so almost half. That's good. They have 9.7 rushing first downs per game. The season average is 6.6. If you didn't know it, Najee Harris is becoming successful, doing well. I guess he's been successful.
Yeah, recently, and I honestly, I don't really know what changed other than some other people were hurt.
I mean, that's
I guess maybe the offense is opening up a little bit more. Like the receivers are doing a bit better. Pickens is getting more confident.
I mean, they all are.
Or sorry,
Deontay Johnson was my, well, both of them really.
Yeah.
Deontay Johnson was my pick to start last week, and he's started to open up a little more now. Pickett's getting more comfortable throwing. Pickett's completion percentage was like 68% or 66% last week.
Mhm.
He's doing, he's making the strides. Like, if you're going to take a season and throw it down the drain so you can have a new QB for the next 10 years, you're starting to see it come to fruition.
Mhm.
Pittsburgh has a +2 turnover margin in the last 3 weeks. They're not turning the ball over. That's Pickett's taking a step forward. And to be honest, that's probably been half the reason they've lost so many games. Now, granted, Monday, this game last week that I'm talking about, they beat the Colts, which isn't exactly, it's not
Right.
it's not the most explosive thing, but Matt Ryan was only sacked twice, maybe 3 times. If we've seen the Colts lose games, it's usually been due to a lot of turnovers, which they only had 1 fumble that was lost, and sacks. And you usually see them in conjunction, like multiples of each in a large amount when it comes to sacks. It wasn't the case. Both points to the Colts, but it also means the offense is just being more efficient. It's the word of the day. Atlanta's on the edge of the playoffs. They're a half game behind the Buccaneers. Buccaneers are 5-6. They are 5-7. I don't know how they're competitive enough to win the NFC South. I just don't. How is this team second? I
That
understand the
division is
other 2 teams.
terrible.
Well, I understand the other 2 teams behind them are worse.
Right.
Like Panthers and the Saints. We get it. But I mean, maybe it's just because the Buccaneers and not being above 500 makes this team look better than they are in a standing sense. I mean, that's the only thing that really makes sense to me. Both teams, like I mentioned before, they don't defend passes like at all. They allow 7. Both teams, it literally are tied for second in the league. 7.3 yards per pass attempt allowed. So let's see, 66. If you average 66% of pass completions, you're looking at 11 yards per completed pass, roughly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not good. It could be this game could go over, or it could be a turnover central. Who knows? Start Pickens. I don't hate Deontay Johnson. Fryermuth is of course a lock. Mariota found Michael Pruitt last week. He was the hey. There it is.
Who's that Pokemon?
He was your random Pokemon that just kind of popped up, and you were walking through the grass, and out of nowhere, you got that noise. He caught the touchdown. Drake London, Olamide Zacchaeus had 5 catches for 91 yards. If there's one thing this team needs besides the returning Kyle Pitts next year, it's another wide receiver, because now with Calvin Ridley gone, this joins like one of my 3 or 4 teams that definitely need a wide receiver, because I have like 3 or 4 for running back and 3 or 4 for wide receiver, and I'm just waiting for it to come about some point in the offseason. So due to the attack that we've seen Pittsburgh and their defensive line have, I don't like Mariota in this. He can scramble. Hope he can do it a lot. I don't know. At points this year, we've seen, without TJ Watt mostly, we've seen Pittsburgh give up rush yards. Don't know if that could come back into play. We know that Atlanta has had some tricks up their bag. They stunned the 49ers back in week 4 or something. So yeah, a lot of different elements to this game. If I had to pick a team, I still would go with the Steelers.
Yeah.
You like that? Anything else for you from this one?
No, I think we touched on the fact that like the
It's ugly?
Falcons, yeah, it's ugly, and the Falcons like are not. They should not be a second place team. Their record is probably better than it really should be, and the Steelers are kind of on the upswing. So yeah.
I hope, and for not only because obviously we both live in the Northeast, I hope for the Steelers and for Mike Tomlin. Imagine if they actually pulled out like an above 500 season and that record isn't ruined for Mike Tomlin. Imagine, like, for sure, first ballot Hall of Famer without a doubt if that happens. Like, you take a rookie quarterback to that. Next game, Packers 4-8 at the Bears 3-9. Green Bay 3.5-point favorites in Soldier Field, over under 44.5. This is we know both quarterbacks that should start, that make this game interesting, will start. So Justin Fields, Aaron Rodgers, way to go. There's no Darnell Mooney, which unfortunately kind of hurts the Bears' chances. However, the Green Bay defense, or lack thereof, over the last 4 weeks kind of makes this interesting anyway. Green Bay is allowing, plus they have an extra 4.3 pass completion since week 8 and an extra 2.2 incompletion since week 8, which means more passes equals more success. They're not defending any more passes. They've also allowed 203 rush yards per game since week 8, which means that the defense is just bad, just very bad. This is a team that ran for 200 yards for 4 straight weeks. Now they come against Green Bay, who's allowing 200 yards.
Right.
There is David Montgomery. There's Justin Fields. I don't need to tell anyone anywhere to start Justin Fields. Don't overthink it. Darrington Evans. I guess David Montgomery gets tired too much. I don't know where he came from last week, but he ran the ball at some point many times, like 10 times. Sure. Why not? I'm surprised that they don't trade for like Amir Abdullah from the Raiders. Well, they can't trade now, but I'm surprised they don't pick up, like Todd Gurley's available. Imagine that thought.
Yeah.
A lot of the Green Bay problems have been some missing defensive keys. Last week against the Eagles, they were missing Devondre Campbell. Quay Walker was the play caller, and the defense didn't do horrible, but gave up 40 points to the Eagles. Only been done once this year. So interesting to note that Green Bay has defensive strides to make. Rodgers will play. Does this help the Christian Watson explosion for you? Are you thrilled about? I would be thrilled about this. There's no Jaquan Brisker in this, who's been the pass defender for everything wide receiver from the Bears. I don't see a lot of other threats. Kyler Gordon gets roasted every single time you put someone like Christian Watson on him. So, I mean, he gets roasted. Absolutely toasted. So yeah, do you have good faith in the Christian Watson experience continuing?
Yeah, I see him having another probably like a floor of 10-ish fantasy points. He is basically the reason they drafted him. He's a speedster with pretty good hands, and he's been making the most of it. I mean, I don't have the other guy's stats in front of me, but Lazard has not been involved. Dobbs may be coming back, but he hasn't been able to build a rapport with Rodgers, and that's a huge deal. Cobb obviously there, so they have options to sort of make it so that one guy can't be focused on, and yeah, I think that should help Watson continue to go full steam ahead.
I hope so. Dobbs and Watson would be a great one too.
Yeah.
If Dobbs can continue to take a step forward. Last week, AJ Dillon, the forgotten AJ Dillon, he got the touchdown carry. Was not the main person on the field. Aaron Jones still was, but he got the touchdown carry. I am depending on that touchdown again this week. So I am not a huge fan of starting him. This game is a much lower. I mean, there's 73 points between the two teams last week in Eagles Green Bay. I don't think that's going to happen here. Although the Bears can put up 30, and now we just saw the Packers do it. So stranger things have happened. With no Darnell Mooney, Chase Claypool will probably get a couple more targets. The fill-in last week was a man by the name of Byron Pringle. If I have to, we'll take a stab at that. Equinemius St. Brown makes my teeth itch. But if you absolutely had to, DFS wise, okay. Like I'll probably take a couple stabs at them in tournaments. Not a cash game lineup, not a cash game player. Actually, the cash game lineup the cash game player from this game is probably Chase Claypool. Because
Or Komet.
Yeah, they're gonna need somebody. Anything else from this one for you? I think honestly, this is a nominee for my upset of the week, which we will talk about when it comes to the super extra epic bit of fun side games.
Yeah, I mean, with Fields back, it depends. Like, it's his non-throwing arm, so that's good, but it may limit his rushing ability, which may make the offense obviously a little more flat, if you will. So yeah, I mean, we've seen what this offense was before they introduced that aspect of their game plan, so that could be tough to watch. Hopefully that's not the case, but I guess that's all to say that some wide receiver could be very involved. Before Claypool, I would say St. Brown was probably Fields' maybe second favorite receiver behind Mooney, but it's tough to say. I don't know what rapport Claypool and Mooney Fields have. Yeah, I don't really know who I want besides Komet from a receiving perspective for this team.
Fair enough. Next game, Jaguars 4-7 at the Lions 4-7. Detroit 1-point favorites at home over under 51. Jacksonville's on an uptick. Detroit's on an uptick. Lions don't defend. Jacksonville can, but they haven't. What happens? You get the second highest total on the slate.
Yeah.
Lions may have Jamison Williams debuting. I don't think that matters for this team. If he plays, I don't think he plays a full set of reps. I don't think you're going to see more than 40 or 50% of snaps from him. Ease him in. He may know the playbook. He ain't seen it on the field. Chill. Jacksonville is allowing 8.1 yards per pass attempt and 2.3 passing touchdowns over the last 4 games. Those are both bad. This game is probably, in my opinion, most likely to go over. Pass defense is again bad. Detroit allowing 150 yards per game to the rush this season, including 170 per game over their last 3. Travis Etienne. Yay. Have fun. Not only could he be crucial for a run game, he's a tempo player this week. Manage tempo, play, give it to Etienne. Let the defense come back a little bit, manage it, and then hit somebody. Kirk, Zay Jones. If Zay Jones doesn't play because he's questionable, Marvin Jones is for sure the next in line. And I don't hate either one, depending on who plays. I like Zay Jones most. He's led the team in targets 2 weeks in a row now. Value. For Detroit, Jamal Williams has carried the ball between 16 and 20 times. He's like only averaging 70 yards or so per game. But Jacksonville's been allowing 124 yards per game rushing going back to week 6. I like Jamal Williams in this. DeAndre Swift has only been used in the passing down. I like DeAndre Swift in this game. Can't believe I'm saying that. Amon-Ra, sure. If Josh Reynolds plays, why not? There's really no bad player to this, and I have no sits for this game. If it goes, it could go to anybody. I guess maybe if I had to pick one, Brock Wright, because who the hell knows if Brock Wright's going to do anything or not.
Yeah.
Start the running back, start Zay Jones if he plays. If he doesn't play, start the other Jones, Marvin the Martian, I don't know. Anything else from this game? This is another game that could go back and forth and be very close, especially in Detroit.
Yeah, no, this could be a bit of a barn burner as the over-under indicates. Hopefully what we saw last week with Lawrence and the team continues. That was a very good game for him, and is sort of what we've all been waiting / expecting to see in his second year. I hope it's not a one-off for him and the Jags.
Defensively, the battle of the 1 and 2 pick in last year's draft. Aiden Hutchinson, Trayvon Walker. Aiden Hutchinson has been much more impactful. But that's not to say that, they both have 4 and 7 records, so they'll both be in the top 10 of the draft again. Next game, Commanders 7-5 at the Giants 7-4. This is a juicy matchup. It's also
Round 2. Fight.
Round 2 of the host v host matchups. Washington 2-point favorites in New York, over under at 40.5. Washington has a massive scoring differential of the last 3 games. Negative 0.3 to plus 10 since week 8. So is their average. So they've basically picked up the offense. And actually, I can't even say they picked up the offense. They haven't just picked up the offense. They've done much better defensively in the past 3 weeks. They've converted 2 or more third downs per game as well, or converting 2 more third downs per game. Didn't write the number that it went from to what it is now, but I'm glad I took note. They also doubled their takeaways since week 8, went from 1.2 to 2.3 per game. If you're averaging 2 to 3 takeaways, you're probably winning football games. Probably, so long as your offense isn't completely Neanderthalish. I like Washington a lot, actually, in this game, especially if any of the above players are out that you mentioned in the 9 segment. If you don't have Slayton, if Bellinger doesn't play, if Richie James is out, like, you need those options for Daniel Jones.
Yeah.
Because Washington's been very good against the run the last couple weeks. Giants are just they're struggling in terms of finding any blowout potential. This team has no confidence. They continue to fight and fight and fight to get wins. We said it the first 7 or 8 weeks. This team's finding a way to win. The problem is when you do that, you get tired.
Yeah.
There's no point to relax. It's nerve-wracking all the way up until the last snap of the game because you're winning by 3 points. They beat the Ravens by a yard, like literally 1 yard. I don't know if you remember that game. Was it the Ravens or was it the Jack? I don't know. One game they only won by a yard, and that's stressful. the team's starting to crumble. It's not good. I can't put it on the defense because the defense, it's not like other teams are coming in and just throwing up 40 points.
Right.
The offense is hurting. We know that. Daniel Jones, this was an interesting stat I found. Daniel Jones is averaging 1 drop per 15.8 pass attempts. With no other stats, that's just a baseline. That's worst in the league, and it's not even close. The next worst is Kirk Cousins at 1 drop per 29.57 pass attempts.
Damn.
Geno Smith, who's in the top 2 in the league in completion percentage, has a drop every 44.1 pass attempts. The team and its structure, and in this case, injuries have to be noted as well. The team doesn't have the tools to do anything but run effectively. Richie James and Darius Slayton cannot continue to hold up this team. Daniel Bellinger will only provide slight reprieve. They need the OBJ who met with them yesterday and today.
Mm-hmm.
They do. And speaking personally as a Cowboys fan, they can have him. Not that he's a problem person or anything like that. The Cowboys, you bring someone else and you screw it up. Cowboys look good right now. The Giants do not. That is huge. Everybody gets better with OBJ. Just saying. I'm advocating for OBJ to the Giants. Not even close. Back to this game and back to players that will play on Sunday. It's not looking hopeful for the Giants. That's my entire takeaway. The slide over the last 4 weeks, it's representative of a very, very winded offense. I take Washington in this 22-16. Start Brian Robinson. The Giants are bad versus the run. I don't like Saquon in this, and they need Saquon. So I hope I'm wrong for all Giants fans' sake.
Yeah, no, I mean, I touched on it when we were talking about the injuries, but I completely agree. This team is unfortunately falling apart after really putting up some great fights to squeak out some wins sometimes. Other times they've looked honestly pretty good. But without any sort of receiving aspect to their game, I don't really see how how they put up points. So yeah, I agree with basically everything you said. And I would also question starting Saquon. I have Commanders 20, Giants 16.
Okay. I'm gonna start making you go first so I can just make my score vastly different. I'm just way out in left field. Although it's probably this last host v host game is probably not going to pick. Next game, 7-4 Titans at the 10-1 Eagles in Philadelphia. For some reason, it just took me a second to think of whatever that cream cheese.
You wanted to say Superdome, didn't you?
No, not yet. Not yet. Not yet. Philadelphia 4.5-point favorites at home, over under 44. So what that tells me is that in Tennessee, this would be probably a 1-point Philadelphia favorite. Philadelphia crowd, they're pretty tough. Philadelphia leads the league in rushing first downs last 3 games. We know why. Jalen Hurts ran the lights out last week. And Miles Sanders did too. They combined for 300 and some yards rushing. Tennessee, on the other hand, is only allowing 3.2 rush yards per attempt since week 8. So good rush team meets good rush defense. Hurts' pass attempts and his yards have decreased while the way of the ball obviously has been moved different. It's been sporadic but effective. More run, stationary short passes. I almost see like a missing, like the missing piece of Dallas Goedert almost coming back to not throwing the ball 40 yards. The attention is now to everybody else, Devontae Smith and AJ Brown mainly.
Mm-hmm.
So the more controlled pass seems to be the way, or not passing at all. Tennessee has 8.9 yards per pass attempt, which is best in the league over the last 3 weeks. Oh my God. They can pass it. It's amazing. Like, oh my God. Treylon Burks makes a difference. I feel like there's some disingenuity between the faith that Ryan Tannehill has in Woods and Cooper, and even to a certain extent, Nick Westbrook, Akina. And then when Treylon Burks is there, like Burks isn't AJ Brown, right? Not yet. But when he's off the field, they're one dimensional again. It's Derrick Henry, sprinkle some Dontrell Hilliard, Derrick Henry, and or random Chris Okonkwo, whoever the tight end is there. They went 2 games without throwing a pass to a wide receiver. Treylon Burks comes back. All of a sudden, everybody's got passes again.
Yeah.
Interesting to know. I like Treylon Burks in this matchup. I think he has something to prove just as much as AJ Brown does. They both have something, and you obviously don't sit AJ Brown. So I will sit Miles Sanders. Tennessee is holding opposing running backs to under 100 yards per game and 3.2 yards per carry, like I mentioned the last 3 games. Do you know who the last running back to have 100 yards against the Titans was? You
Was
can
it
read
this season?
Believe it or not, it was. Saquon Barkley had 168 against them in week 1. Week 1. Tennessee doesn't allow people to run.
Yeah, I was going to say, if anything, that would make the most sense because you don't have the footage to study.
Yeah, for the most part, that's about it. So all of a sudden, Tennessee's good. I'd still kind of like the Eagles in this one, but I would not be surprised if Tennessee has something for this Philadelphia team.
Yeah, I mean, definitely a defensive-minded team via the coach, obviously. Yeah, the Titans. It's weird. We talked about like their record not feeling like it should be 7-4, but at the same time, they're almost similar to the Giants in a way. They have more pieces, more like talented pieces, if you will. But they have a defense that can figure out a team coming into the game and try to stop some of the aspects, obviously, that said team would try to make work. And then they kind of sort of make it happen on offense. To your point, like Tannehill was hurt, Burks was hurt. So it's just now in the past couple of weeks that they've really started to be able to get those things going. And I mean, 2 solid weeks from Burks. Granted, last week he was involved, but really that recovered touchdown on the Henry fumble is kind of what saved his fantasy day. So it's not to say that I don't think Burks can continue to have success, but last week wasn't the same deal there. So anyways, long story short, I wouldn't be surprised, as you said, to see the Titans potentially win this game, but definitely keep it very close.
Right. I agree. Real quick, going to go over 2 more games because we only got a few minutes and then we got a break for our final time. Broncos at the Ravens. Ravens 9.5-point favorites, over under 39.5. Denver's allowing 13 yards per pass completion over the last 3 games. That's very bad. Their average is 8.8 on the season. It's also very bad. Defenses can't hold this team up. They can't do it anymore. Baltimore's defense, on the other hand, is getting a lot better. 19.2 average total first downs allowed per game, but they have been allowing 14 per game since week 7. Wilson isn't leading this team. If the injured wide receivers are out, he's throwing to nobodies from the stands. I can't think Wilson is going to change. Would not be surprised to see a new head coach or offensive coordinator at the end of the season. Start Justin Tucker. Despite this, Denver is still the best team in terms of preventing red zone scores, right around 30%. So we're gonna line up the Justin Tucker kicker for you DST people. Sit Russ because he's not dependable. I don't think I'm playing Dulcich this week. I know he's like the projected tight end 11 or 12. He might be the only person to pass to. I don't like it. And then real quick, I'm going to go over the Seahawks and the Rams because there's no competition to talk about here. The Rams will have John Wolford starting. So if you want to grind your teeth on some sandpaper, that'll be more interesting. The Rams have so many missing pieces. It's just so bad. I have zero expectation for anyone from this Rams team. They are absolutely 100% perfect for a DFS lineup because somebody's got to score.
Right.
Or somebody's got to do something. So dart throw, like the most dart throw that you could ever dart throw. Skoranek, Van Jefferson,
Yeah, I kind of
Ronnie
like.
Rivers. No,
I mean, I kind of like Higbee just because he might be the
Does he
most
play?
talented option. Well, that's the problem. Yeah, but like he might be the most talented option, and we know Seattle is like
bad
they
against
might be
tight
the
ends.
last. Yeah, they might be 32nd against tight ends.
Yeah, that's a very valid point. I guess Higbee would be the only person, but you still have John Wolford throwing bricks to him. I don't know.
Yeah.
Seattle looks amazing. Both the wide receivers, Metcalf and Lockett, should have great opportunities here for the 2.5 or 3 quarters that their play is valuable, and then you'll see Marquise Goodwin become the wide receiver 1 and random wide receiver 5 from the depth chart
Eskridge or whatever.
Yeah, you probably will see him in this game. Metcalf had 11 catches for 90 last week. Lockett only had 3, but he caught the touchdown. Go to town with them. Seahawks clear favorites. Start anyone you want on the Seahawks. Sit everyone on the Rams except for Higbee, I guess, if he plays. I don't understand how Seattle is only 7-point favorites, even if it is in LA, because the crowd is always 50-50. So it's ugly. Anything else you want to throw up about in this game? That's all this makes me want to do.
No.
Yeah.
You suck, you jackass.
We're gonna take our final break. We got 5 games, and then we will have our 5 fantasy flyers and our super epic bit of fun side games. Because me and Taylor are facing off for the second time in our 53-man league. I'll go over my trades that most of you will throw up about, and then we'll make our picks, and we'll also have a special underdog pick as well. I'll go over all that when we get to the end of the episode. Taylor, do the dog a favor and sign us out.
We'll see y'all on the other side.
And welcome back to part 3 of the Fantasy Flyer, episode 25, the week 13 preview show. Gonna keep going. Got a few more games left on this preview before we give you our 5 fantasy flyers and play the side game. Browns 4-7 at the Texans 1-9-1. Cleveland 7-point favorites over under 46.5. It is the debut.
I'm sexy and I know it.
Deshaun Watson. Don't hate on it.
I like sex.
That's all you got for Deshaun Watson right there. That's all it's going to be. I don't think there's a good chance that Cleveland can make its way into the playoffs. I don't see that as being very likely. Dolphins 8-3, Bills 9-3 now because they won last night. Some good teams. The Chiefs are 9-2. Like the wild card seems like the only way they could do it. I don't know. They'd have to win out for sure. Browns got the needed win against the Bucks last week, which I think probably would have doomed them. But I think they really need the Ravens and the Bengals, who are both 7-4, to fall apart. Houston's already officially eliminated. Kyle Allen was bleh last week. Damian Pierce is not the Damian Pierce we saw in the first 6 weeks. Quickly got folded in half and put away for the winter. Rode hard, put away wet. Start Cooper, start DPJ. There's no Njoku. Watson's playing. I hope he can still throw a football. I'm sitting most of Houston. I have somebody who I'm eyeing, but I will tell you during my 5 fantasy flyers and why.
Oh, okay.
Oh, spoiler alert. Anything from this one for you? Besides, I mean, imagine you walk into Houston massage parlor and
No, God!
that's all you get. So
Yeah, the biggest question obviously is in everybody's mind, I would imagine Watson. Yeah, whether he can still throw the ball. Does he lean more heavily on the scrambling because he's so rusty. Like he basically hasn't played in, I would say 2 years.
700 days.
Yeah, I mean it's well, okay, so that is almost 2 years.
Yeah,
Yeah.
700 days.
So yeah, we'll have to see how that plays out. This could be a rough one to watch.
He's bare-chested and banging his chest.
All of the things that I could say about Deshaun Watson, and most of them are right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do still like the Browns in this one, and I don't think that's up for debate a lot between us. Next game, 8-3 Dolphins at the 49ers, 7-4. San Francisco 4-point favorites at home, over under 46.5. Probably the most competitive game on the slate, just because we don't know which team's going to go for 60 points and which one can throw up a defensive wall. Dolphins are number 1 in the NFL in first half scoring over the last 3 weeks. Interesting little note there. They score a lot to start off. Also, it helps because they scored 30 points against the Texans last week and then decided to throw out the entire second unit for the entire second half. So,
Yeah.
San Francisco is first in points allowed, yards allowed on the season. They do face the most explosive test, that is Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. But Hill has not scored a receiving touchdown in 2 games versus the 49ers, and he only has 156 combined yards in those 2 games. So interesting to note, San Francisco has a little bit of familiarity with his explosiveness. Jalen Waddle will probably be the biggest question mark for them. It's a high-powered offense, the most restrictive defense. Another important thing to note, and I feel it ends this week because of the Dolphins and who they have as tools. San Francisco has not allowed any points in the second half in the last 4 games. They've outscored opponents 57-0.
Damn.
Yeah, they've done well. Start Ayuk, start Debo, start Kittle, start Waddle, start Hill, start Christian McCaffrey. The only one who I'm not real keen on is Jeff Wilson, and now Raheem Mostert, who I guess is playing this week. So, not real keen on the run game versus the 49ers. They also have allowed less than 200 first downs, which is 30 better than any other team. The 49ers have. So it's going to be kind of interesting, in my opinion. If their defense locks down, I think this game goes under. But that's all I got for this one, because it could go any number of ways.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of to add to the I don't know what the right word is, but any number of ways, I guess, to add to that, like Shanahan, McDaniel coming from his system, he knows his playbook. What do they do to sort of mix things up and throw each other off? I mean, they both more or less play a similar, not really a similar offense, because Tyreek Hill and Waddle are way different than the wide receivers that the 49ers have. But anyways, they know each other's playbooks, and that'll make things interesting.
Well said. Gonna go to the Chargers 6-5 at the Raiders 4-7. Las Vegas is 1-point favorite at home, over under 49.5. Raiders are coming off that big old powerful win that was powered by 7,000 horsepower Josh Jacobs. This is a good game for him again. Like, way to start there, because Chargers aren't good against the run. They're 30th against the run overall. They allow a lot of touchdowns, a lot of yards on the ground. Josh Jacobs is a large man. For the Chargers, Keenan Allen kind of returned to that wide receiver 1 role. Didn't lead the team in yards or receptions, but he's a noticeable presence that's attracting defensive attention. With no Mike Williams, there's targets to go around. Carter last week, 7 for 73 with a touchdown. The week before, it was Josh Palmer who caught everything in a touchdown. Seems like they both have a big key to Herbert's passing game, and they probably will this week as well. Obviously, Austin Eckler, he's the league leader in yards after catch with 563. Good for him. Adams, 7 and 10 receptions versus the Chargers in 2 games, respectively. In his career, he averages just under 13 targets per game this season. Don't see that really changing this week. Foster Moreau is my start because the Chargers are bad versus they're almost as bad versus tight ends as they are against the rush. They allow some people to score. I don't have any obvious sit here. I'm going to take a guess between the two. I said sit Palmer. Last week was Carter. Maybe this week's Palmer. Like, you're kind of flipping a coin.
Yeah.
No easy sit here. You don't sit at Eckler. Like, who do you? Max Crosby will get to Justin Herbert, but also Justin Herbert throws for like 88 miles. So like every time he throws the ball. So I don't know. Don't sit Justin Herbert. I don't know. Derek Carr, maybe, if you feel like being wrong. I don't know. Anything else from this one?
Yeah, no, I like the fact that it has a high over under. I might target some of these players in DFS.
It's especially with the lack of, like, you have 2 clear wide receiver ones.
Yeah.
There's no Hunter Renfrow on one side. There's no Mike Williams on the other. You can dart throw Mac Williams and DeAndre Carter, and you can go back and forth with a couple different. And then the other thing is really the tight end 1 for both teams is gone. Donald Parham really was the tight end 1 for the Chargers. This will probably be the last game he misses. But then you have Darren Waller who's gone. So now you're at the tight end 2's position. We know Moreau he's had 4 red zone targets last 4 weeks. Overall, a little bit better than Everett, but Everett got the 2-point conversion to beat the Cardinals last week. So there's plus sides to both of these. The Raiders don't really have a huge weak spot between any of the positions. But yeah, for DFS purposes, this is not a bad. This is where you can get easy points at a sub 5K range for DraftKings, sub 55 for FanDuel. And then you can even, if you join that with, say, I don't know, one of the really, really cheap options from what game were we talking about earlier that was all DFS? Oh, the Rams. Van Jefferson or anybody besides Tyler Higbee. If you do that, you have the option to get to the Justin Jeffersons, the Stephon Diggs is already gone, so you wouldn't get any Diggs, but the Derrick Henry, the Jalen Hurts. So next game, Chiefs 9-2, Bengals 7-4. Kansas City is a 2-point favorite. Over under is 53, and it is the third
Finish him.
of our host v host games. Big over under, largest on the slate. If Joe Mixon is back, I don't like it. I'm just going to start off by saying that. Kansas City's still very stout against the run. Honestly, it's better for the Bengals, I think, if Samaje Perine still plays and Mixon doesn't get out of the concussion protocol. Not that you don't want that. You don't want that. But Perine's been a very good pass catcher. Mixon's done well too. I shouldn't say he's there's the fantasy value is still there for Mixon if he plays. He's obviously going to tote it quite a few times. You don't not do that with Joe Mixon. You don't not play him because he could have another 55-point day. Who knows? Juju's back for Kansas City. Pacheco is now their leading rusher, and I think that's pretty clear. Are the Bengals it's Kansas City's a 2-point favorite in Cincinnati? Bengals as underdogs is a little interesting to me, especially if Jamar Chase comes back. That is one thing that this over under and this spread will not indicate because Jamar Chase has not been ruled in.
Right.
With him there, I imagine this is almost an even. It's probably a 1 point or even. Either way, an interesting game. 2 competent offenses, a rematch of the AFC Championship game from January. Mahomes has been the MVP for most of the season at this point. I think that's kind of a consensus just between leading the team and how he's run the offense. All in all, juicy matchup. Passing attack should be ferocious. Words are still difficult.
It's week 13. Why would they get any better?
That's right. Practice makes persistent, doesn't make perfect. If you practice it wrong, you will continue to do it wrong. Kelsey's the tight end 1 on the year. Let these two teams feast. Random start of the week, MVS. I don't know who could be besides Kelsey. You start Kelsey. Juju's probably safe back in full swing. I actually like Sky Moore in this too. He, even with the return of Juju last week, he saw 46% of snaps. And he's done well with those snaps as well. Had 5 catches for 35 yards, I believe.
Something like that.
If he sees 50 to 60% again this week, which would probably be a ceiling for the year, to be honest, especially until Hardman gets back. Hardman being a little more utility, but I don't hate Sky Moore as a especially a DFS throw in this one, just because of the way that Mahomes has been using him. Kansas City stout versus the run, so Mixon, P. Ryan on the run game. Again, they both have pass catching ability, so I don't hate that. My next sit probably would be Hayden Hurst, just because if Jamar Chase plays, you're going to have Higgins, you're going to have Chase, and they're going to need to throw it to keep up with Kansas City. So anything else from this one? I'm going to go Kansas City 30-28. I think it's going to be almost a repeat of what we saw, except the other way around. Cincinnati won in January in the AFC Championship game. They won 30-27. So I'm going to swap it this time 30-28, and I'm taking the over.
Yeah, we are once again very similar. I have Chiefs 30, Bengals 26.
Jesus Christ. Both took the over. Anything else you want to add for this one?
No, I think you touched on basically everything. Just obviously keep
Are you
an eye
sure
on-
about that?
keep an eye on Jamar Chase. And honestly,
Go ahead.
good. I was just gonna say I'm a little nervous as to his usage if he does play. Although the thing I mentioned before was they didn't play him last week because he'd been out for 4 weeks. He didn't have the NFL sort of speed, tempo, hard hits, etc. So a week of practice, they seem like they feel better about him. I don't think that they really limit him. So maybe I take that back.
Well, if he does sit out, T. Higgins is like a must start,
Yeah.
like across all platforms. Becomes a chalk option in just about everything. So next game we're going to go to is the Sunday night football game, which probably should have been flexed out for the Colts of well-being. Colts 4-7-1 traveled to Dallas to take on the 8-3 Cowboys. Dallas is the best team in the NFL in second half points scored since week 7. They've had the number 1 offense in the league in scoring since Dak's return week 7. They're second in points allowed this season because the defense has been immaculate for the most part. Now Dallas, the best team at pressuring the quarterback and getting to the quarterback, gets to take on the team that has a hard time stopping that. Yeah, it could get bad. Or it's a giant trap game. And either one is in the cards. Like, that's the thing. The Cowboys could nap on this so hard. I've seen it happen so many times. I did say the Cowboys are 10.5-point favorites, right? Indianapolis has done better versus opposing defensive attacks. They've only allowed 2.7 sacks over the last 3. Their season average is 3.6, including those 2.7. So it's really like 4.5. So they're doing much better, which is buying Matt Ryan time, which is why they almost beat the Eagles. And if you need comparison about what can happen versus the Cowboys, look at that Eagles game. If they can't get drive started, Indianapolis will falter. Their depth of pass has decreased over their last 2 weeks. They're not throwing it 8 to 10. They're throwing it closer to 6. Less air yards, obviously increased completion percentage. It's worked out. Jelani Woods, Michael Pittman, Paris Campbell, just about everybody. The only person it hasn't worked out for yet is Alec Pierce. Also, Dallas has been known to leak yards to running backs. Jonathan Taylor has been on the upswing the last 3 weeks. He's my start out of this Indianapolis. They need him so bad this week. Dallas gave up a truck ton of yards to Aaron Jones a few weeks back. They did absolutely perfectly fine versus the Vikings, which was their last, or not the Vikings. Well, they did fine against the Vikings too. But the Giants, they did very well against Saquon. So
Mhm.
obviously I take Cowboys in this. Yeah, let me take the Giants in the Colts and Cowboys game. That'll work out well. I'm sitting Indianapolis's defense. I'm sitting Matt Ryan. Paris Campbell's the random wide receiver I chose to not do well. He probably will. Michael Pittman could do just as bad as anything, or just as well. It all depends on how much pressure that the Cowboys get to Matt Ryan. That is what this game circles around. Dallas's offense can not be as effective. They can run the ball for only 75 yards between Zeke and Pollard. They can throw the ball only 200 yards. They'll still score 2 to 3 times. And if Matt Ryan can't get a pass off, it don't matter squat. Anything else you'd like to add? I think I've kind of touched upon this one. Well, these are two teams I've watched all year. One because I like them, the other because they've been misjudged and misguided from everybody from Twitter to professionals.
Yeah. No, you touched on a lot of good stuff here. I like the fact that you brought up. I I went back and forth on. I mean, I'm still going to play JT, but my nervous level of playing him against the Dallas D and the fact that the O-line of Indianapolis hasn't been great this season, but obviously has been great, but not great, better the past 2 weeks. So the fact that the Dallas kind of leaks some yards to running backs makes me feel a little bit better. But it's weird that sometimes Indianapolis gets away from the run game and then they're like, wait, he's our best player. Roll it back. I don't know. I don't know why that keeps happening, but it does.
Yeah, that's and Jeff Saturday, when he came on, they mentioned it on Monday Night Football. Jeff Saturday said we need to get back to running the ball as our core. Like you have somebody, he's a perfectly good Jonathan Taylor right there.
Yeah.
Why? And you saw it in a small amount against the Steelers on Monday Night Football, when they started to get out of their realm, which was the entire first half, they went back to running the ball, short bursts, and then they'd find passing, short bursts, passing. And when you control the tempo a little bit and your offensive line doesn't give up 7 sacks a game, you have a chance. Now, they didn't win, but they looked a lot better than any of the first 7 weeks with Frank Reich.
Right. Yeah.
So, last game, Monday Night Football, Saints 4-8 at the Buccaneers 5-6. Tampa Bay 3.5-point favorites at home, over under 40.5. I don't think this game will hit 40 points. This matchup has gone under. Hold on. I wrote it somewhere in my notes. It's gone under the total 6 of the last 8 games, including that astonishing 9-0 game that happened like 2 years ago. New Orleans rush game is on a downslide. They've had 9 rushing first downs in total over their last 3 games. 23% of their yards over the last 3 games have been on the ground. Alvin Kamara, I don't know what happened. I mean, these are the type of numbers that would make the Colts go, Jonathan Taylor can't play.
Yeah.
It's not good. He hasn't been effective. There's been no substantial pass game to help him flourish. He's kind of been the focus. Chris Olave has been middle of the pack the last 3 weeks, so it's kind of shown on both sides. Obviously, they got absolutely wiped out by the 49ers last week, like ghosted. Like they scored again. I've said it before. They scored as many points as you and I did. For Tampa Bay, Tom Brady looks better now that he's divorced. I don't know how that could be. It's true. Like his literally, like ever since that was made public 3 weeks ago, his football's just got, it's like his stress level for everything else. It's like, well, I might as well go out and try and win. Godwin and Evans seem more successful. Last week it was Godwin who had 11 for 100 and some and a touchdown and did absolutely wonderful things. Most of the season it's been Mike Evans, 1A, 1B. They can rotate at times. Otten and Brait were roughly 50-50 on tight end snaps last week. If they both play, I expect much of the similar here, much of the same. New Orleans has won 8 of their last 10 versus Tampa Bay, but that wasn't Andy Dalton. So Andy Dalton plays football, and the only thing that I can think is
Oh,
That guy's ruining a perfectly good game of football!
it's totally accurate. That's it's same thing. I've been thinking the same thing with Russell Wilson for the last like 2 games too. Yeah, Dalton's solid, but he won't be there next year. Why aren't they playing Winston? I just don't there's no rhyme or reason. Like Sean
yeah.
Payton has to be looking at this team and is like, what I got out of there. I don't know why they don't start him. Leonard Fournette should be back this week. I heard that he will be absolutely active. I like him for once
Yeah.
this year. I like Leonard Fournette. I don't hate this opportunity in this game. I'd sit Andy Dalton, like I just said. Play Olave. If Juwan Johnson plays too, he's been soaking up red zone targets. Thumbs up for that. Other than that, this game, like I want to say the Buccaneers win, but also I have no interest in this game and I don't care.
Yeah. I don't want to take too much time on this, but I was talking to one of the guys in our league about Fournette, not realizing sort of the year that he's had. It's actually been pretty decent, and I was kind of having a little recency bias with Rashad White. So I'm just kind of interested in your thoughts on that moving forward, because Leonard has 2 more years on the contract he just signed. Is that
Okay.
right? Or was
Sure.
it's at least 1 more year for sure. I don't know. I feel like, I mean, he's 27 right now. He's still got some juice in him, obviously, but I don't know. Rashad White just has shown very well. I could see them either being 50-50 or starting to go towards White, but like I said, I didn't realize quite the year that Fournette had.
Fantasy aspect, he's been underperforming. Now, salary included in that determination, because he's $39 on our salary cap, which is roughly 8.5% of a team's salary just for one player.
Yeah.
He has had a 37-point game and a 24-point game.
Right, and that's
Those
one
are-
of the things I
Those
pointed
are
out.
very good.
Yeah.
That's raising his average by
Right.
a mile. His average is 16.9. If you take out those 2 games, you're looking at 13.5, 14 points.
Yeah.
Now, is that bad? No. Is it? Do you care as a fantasy owner whether it comes in the air or on the ground? No. The points is the yards, is the attempts. It's all the same when it comes to the end of the game, and the total's the total. He has 3 rushing touchdowns on the year. He also has 50 targets and 43 receptions through 10 games. They didn't play week 11. We're going into well, hold on, wait. Oh, yeah, and he didn't play week 12. I was literally like, wait, what?
Yeah.
Yeah, through 10 games. He has games of 11.9, 11.8, 13.2, 13. 4 of his games and 5.4. So 5 of his 10 games have been below 13.5 fantasy points. The RB1 is falling from him. So with that being said, he had against New Orleans in week 2, he had 24 rush attempts, ran for 65 yards, only had 2 catches, which is his second lowest, tied for his second lowest of the year. They've been using every bit about that was during the first 4 weeks when we said, why aren't Tampa Bay using Leonard Fournette in the pass game? Why not? Week 6, he had 10 catches. So this 11.8 for him against New Orleans, I can easily see this being a 17 to 20 point game for him. And if he hits a touchdown, even more. But there's, from a fantasy standpoint, in our dynasty league, he'll be 28 next year. He's going to be $42 next year, if he's even still. And for what it's worth going long term, I'm honestly kind of glad you didn't take that, because $42 for what he may give you and what we just saw Rashad White put up. This could
Right.
easily be 50-50 next year for Tampa Bay. So I shipped out Fournette when he was questionable, and that was when he was doing well. And ever since then, been a letdown. Besides 3 games actually with this one. So, just my take on it. Obviously, if you need running back help, there's all of those would be points to lower the price for him because they're all valid points. They drafted Rashad White for a reason,
Right.
especially when you know Leonard Fournette can play.
Yeah.
So,
So you think moving forward, it becomes a little more 50-50?
I don't know about this year. So let's make that when Tom Brady is out.
Right. He
Because
does.
again, Brady is out at the end of this year by contract. If he
Mhm.
resigns, different story. When Brady's out and it's somebody else throwing the ball and it's somebody else moving that team, I think this dynamic changes.
Mhm.
I don't think you can rely so much on Brady likes him, Brady will use him. Let's see if that works.
Yeah.
Brady
Yeah.
makes other players look better. This is point blank. But yeah, all in all, he's still a good back. He's only 27 going on 28. Fine. It's just same thing with Zeke. Zeke just did it a year or so earlier.
Yeah.
Also
Yeah.
27, value's probably starting to tank.
Right. I mean, there's outliers to this, but you always hear that around 28 is when they start to. That's like their last good-ish season. They start to drop
Yeah.
off after that.
Makes sense. So that is it for all of them. Their games for week 13. We are going to go into our 5 fantasy flyers and a super epic extra bit of fun side games. For those of you who weren't around the first time this happened this year, me and Taylor face off in our 53-man league. Yes. Oh God, that was tough to say. I struggled through that one. But when we do that, we play a few extra head-to-head for some points on our host v host standings. So I've added a new layer to it. We're going to give you our 5 fantasy flyers like we do every preview show. You're going to get 5 players from each of us that we think we're going to have good weeks based on injuries, based on teams, based on opportunity. Players can't be more than 50% owned. They have to be definable as a flyer. So you can't take Justin Jefferson. That's not a flyer. Everybody should be starting Justin Jefferson. Whoever has the most fantasy points in PPR gets 15 points towards host v host. In the super epic bit of fun side games, we're going to pick 3 players from each of our team. They finish in the top 3 fantasy point scorers for our team. You get 10 points for each player. If you get all 3, it is not 30, it is 50. So in essence, you get all 3, you get a bonus 20 points. There is, in this part 2, we are going to do an underdog pick, which means that of all the games we just went over, we are going to pick one underdog to win, and it can't be the same game between me and Taylor. Taylor currently leads 146 to 142. He will pick his game first. That is the right that the leader chooses.
Ooh,
Or gets.
hot damn! I didn't realize that.
Yeah, I told you. You picked your game first because you were the leader. He didn't hear me. It's all right. But if we both get it right, whoever gets it right, we get 20 points. If you don't get it right, well, you get nothing. So we'll start off with our 5 fantasy flyers because this is something we do on every episode. Do you want to go first?
Yeah, after what happened last week where we had all the same players.
Sure.
What a muppet.
All right, so yeah, I went with Cordero Patterson, and then we kind of talked about the Los Angeles Chargers guys. I ended up going with Carter, obviously Palmer, another good option.
Mm-hmm.
I went with Zay Jones. I am a little concerned about his questionable tag, but if he plays, he should have a pretty good game. And then I have Pickens and Higbee, and I'm willing to swap out Pickens if we feel like he is no longer flyer worthy.
Well, I'm definitely going much more flyer than you are. I'll tell you that much.
All right,
Yeah.
why don't I swap out Pickens?
I
Instead of Pickens,
think don't
I
have
will.
stats on him being 50% owned, but I feel
Yeah.
like he's
All right.
close to that.
This is a
big of
very
one. And
this is a huge flyer and probably will get the goose, but I'll go Kyron Williams instead of Pickens.
you're going with you are also taking somebody from the run game of the Rams. So my 5 fantasy flyers are number 1, DJ Chark. Had 6 targets last week. Well, last Thursday against the Bills. Only caught 2 of them for 16 yards. I like the opportunity. Has again another pace up spot, so to speak, versus the Jaguars. Number 4, Nico Collins. Kyle Allen will be starting again. There's a little bit of a difference between the Cleveland Browns secondary and the Dolphins secondary. Nico Collins had 9 targets last week, caught 6 of them. He led the team. There's no Brandon Cooks. I'm going to take a dart throw there on Nico Collins.
I like
number
that.
number 3, Sky Moore. Again, talked about him. 5 for 35 last week, saw 46%. I think he's going to see around the same this week. Number 2, Olamide Zaccheaus. We talked about wide receivers. Pittsburgh allows catches. Pittsburgh allows wide receivers to do things. Drake London is not a bad play, but he's not a flyer. I'll take Olamide Zaccheaus, who's proven himself to be the 2 in that offense. And my number 1, Cam Akers. They dropped Darrell Henderson. Cam Akers all of a sudden become mostly the RB1. Seattle just gave up a truck ton of yards to Josh Jacobs. I don't think that's going to happen with Cam Akers, but if he can be serviceable at 8 to 10 points, I do not hate him as a running back. So those are my 5 fantasy flyers.
I like it.
Part two. We're going to pick 3 players from our fantasy team. I'll just tell you my 3 right out. I have Ezekiel Elliott, Kenny Pickett, and Michael Pittman. I traded away Patrick Mahomes and Tyler Lockett literally yesterday during our trade deadline. Got a bunch of picks for him. I'm not going to win a championship, so I'm going to look to the future again. I'll just make it as simple as that because I'm not going to make myself any more disappointed than I already am. Your 3 epic bit of fun side games, 3-person tandem from who are your 3 players?
I have Dak, JT, and then this is where it got a little interesting. I wanted to go Debo. He's questionable. I think my safest bet is probably Kirk Cousins. My other options I was looking at were Jimmy G and Olave, but yeah, I went Cousins. So 2
Okay.
QBs. I mean, it's kind of a safe bet, I would think.
I would hope so, but you never know. You never know. Zay Jones put up 28 fantasy points for me last week. So he's not in my lineup this week and has the exact same opportunity. Last one for our epic bit of fun side games is the underdog pick for 20 points. You get to go first. I know what mine is, and I have 2. So if you pick one of mine, I still win. I don't win, but I have an opportunity. So go ahead with your first one.
All right. There was actually a lot of good options. I think my favorites were Bengals, Chargers, and Dolphins. I went with Dolphins.
Okay.
And they would be upsetting the 49ers.
Dolphins over 49ers. I'm going to go out on the biggest limb that you can go out. And I really like the way I like this matchup. I have to stand by how these 2 teams have performed recently. I'm taking the Titans over the Eagles.
That was on my list.
Good. The Titans have looked decent. They have a tough rush defense. They have the toughest rusher in the game. The Eagles have not a lay down defense. I get that. But they gave up 33 points to the Packers, including 14 or so to Jordan Love. They almost lost to the Colts. If it wasn't separated by a rather blowout win, this team is careening down to normalcy, we'll say, or slightly above normalcy. Being that they only have a 4-point advantage at home, or 4.5 point, I like the Titans as an upset. It won't count but I also like the Bears over the Packers. So mine is the Titans, but if the Bears win, I want that on record because I think that's totally a thing that can also happen. So,
Yeah.
So those are our two interesting. That'll be very interesting when we come on Wednesday's show. That's all we have for this episode. Those are the end of the extra epic fun bit of side games. Forgot the echo for a second. When we come in on Wednesday, it'll be Wednesday night show, which will probably be posted Thursday morning of next week. We're obviously going to review most of these games in some capacity. I'm going to go over all of the extra bit of fun side games results, the 5 fantasy flyers, all that fun stuff. And we may have a little bit of a surprise for you guys. I don't know. I don't exactly understand if he's going to be on, but I hope so.
Here's a guy that has a deep understanding.
I don't understand it all, actually. But yeah. Anything else from you for this episode? Any last notes you want to get out, Taylor, before we sign off?
No, I'm excited to see the results of these super epic. I don't have an echo thing, so super echo. The fun games. I'm excited to see the results.
It's absolutely wonderful what a soundboard does for you. Anyway, my name's Derek. That's been Taylor. I'm going to sign you off with our usual sign off. Cut it to some Bob Barker. Have a good weekend. Enjoy some football.
Peace out, y'all.
Bob Barker reminding you, help control the pet population. Have your pet spayed or neutered. Goodbye, everybody.